for the first team home matches. You know, my Saturday started with going to Booker again, getting shopping at 10:30 in the morning. So they might let that team not get promoted, relegated them because they've lost a shed load of players, but then when the registration starts and the game starts, it's the same players, it's the same team. And then, I gave up. I actually sort of stopped playing quite young in my early 20s. So I don't know really. I think there's a lesson to be learned from Chalvey's journey to Step 6 football. You know, the bottom. What people say it's the bottom league of the non-league football, right?
Ice in my veins, I've been driving this train. Years in this lane, there's no stopping this flame. Cause I came to the game and I changed it to play how I like rearrange.
Back everybody and welcome back to another POGESCAST. This is our 4th episode and I've got a special guest with me today. I've got Scott Young.
Yeah, thanks Darren. I mean, yeah, thanks for inviting me along. I've watched the first couple of podcasts this season and they're very enjoyable. I think giving a platform for any grassroots football community is a really good thing. And, you know, I'd like to think I could contribute and, you know, and be involved. It's always something that's been close to my heart, local football. Hence why I spent so much time involved in it. So, no, this is really good stuff. Yeah, thanks for the invitation.
No problems. I really appreciate your time today. So what I want to do today is obviously have a chat about yourself, what your football life has been like for the last 30, 40 years probably, and just dive into local football as well, and really just touch on, obviously, most people know now Scott retired from football recently. We touch on a little bit about that eventually as well.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, yourself.
Yeah.
So, Scott, I mean, obviously, just mentioned that you're a grassroots football guy. I've known you for several years now. Someone I probably looked at your club as Chalvey and thought, I'd like to emulate that. It's obviously you started with Chalvey. I know there's been a bit of a bio out there on the Twitter that you put out there and such like. I mean, tell us, you know, how did it all start from you? Why you 30 or 40 years into football, why don't you just walk away like most people do?
Well, you know, I grew up in Chalvey, so you know, I think I moved to the area when I was really young, probably about 2 years old, onto the the estate, the home farm estate as it's called, and grew up there. Great place to grow up. You know, there are lots of people from all over Slough that live within their communities and love those communities in which they grow up in, and you know, the sort of reputation Chalvey as an area has got now is completely different to, you know, growing up there.
Yeah.
So from a football perspective, I played for some Chalvey football teams out at the play centre. You know, that's where I started playing football. So I think the first team I played for was Chalvey Babes in like 1980 or something like that. And we played out at the old play centre, and there were, you know, successive age groups of football teams based in Chalvey at that point, all playing on Chalvey Rec. And it's a shame, actually, probably for a good 30 years that football's been non-existent for kids in Chalvey. It's really died away. And as a football club and being involved with Chalvey sports, it's something that we always wanted to try and return to the area, but as you know, you need volunteers to do that, and that's something that we could never progress on. But anyway, of course, growing up around there, there was a community of lads my age, a community of, you know, the wider community of the older guys on the estate, and they all, you know, when I got to 16, started playing football for Chalvey Sport. So, you know, me and a group of friends, some of us stayed quite a long time, some people played for a couple of seasons and then gave up football. But yeah, we were based out of the Garibaldi pub in Chalvey. A fellow called Derek Macklin, who to us as Chalvey people as a local football legend as well. He sort of, I think it was about 1986, he started the club after about a 5 or 6 year sort of break, I think. But, you know, you can trace Chalvey's history all the way back to 1885.
Yeah.
You know Steve Law, Slough on the Slough Cup, and involved with Ivor. He was looking for Ivor's club history, and we always, you know, according to the records that we had, we were formed in sort of like 1920 something. I think it's 21 or 23. Quilty will kill me because he always remembers the dates and I never remember them. But it's 1921 or 1923. That's when we thought the club were established. But Steve Law sent us an email and said, look, I've been looking for Ivor's history and found these paper clippings in the library back to 1885, and there it was.
Oh, wow.
Chalvey Football Club, you know, and actually since then I spent a lot of time during COVID looking back, trying to find historical league tables for the club, and found one dating back to 1894 and 1895.
Jeez.
So I've got one table from there, and then nothing until after the Second World War.
Oh, wow.
So I've got loads of tables for the club now, and it's quite difficult to find this stuff.
Oh no, and to be quite honest, you've started recently, I say recently, a few years back, a local football page on Facebook, which got a lot of older photographs and such like on there, which is really interesting actually. But we won't show it yet because I literally just only the other week found a load of historic photographs which were given to me by the parish council for Stoke Poges, which made me do very much a similar thing. Started looking back to where we were. We had a guy called, I think his name's Edward Parry, who played for England. He played at Eton Wick, he played for Stoke Poges, and he played for Corinthian Casuals or something. I'm sure that's something like that. And yeah, he played for England. So for us, we've always like we've got an England player. But yeah, I'll show you those in a little while. We've got a few of the photographs up on here. Probably show a few of what Scott's done as well, because it is interesting stuff. And
it really is, and you know, there was a day before the internet was around. You know, I'm not so much a dinosaur with this sort of stuff as I used to be, and it was quite interesting to find some of that stuff out. I mean, the club used to play on an annual basis something called the Chalvey Charity Cup, and there were clubs like QPR played at the recreation ground in the 50s against the Chalvey side, and there was a local player in the Chalvey area who played for QPR, I'm led to believe. But then, there's like snippets of stuff in local papers if you could ever sort of spend the time looking through it, and you'll find all that stuff. So yeah, it is interesting to know the background and what went before to get you to where you are now. You know, because it does all. It all ties in and plays a really significant part. You know, so it's interesting stuff. I think I started that Facebook page, I think that was during COVID. It's got over 500 members now. I don't really do anything. I just sort of started the page and put a couple of photographs in there. And then lots of people started putting, and then when anyone joins now, I just go approve. And if there are any like dodgy adverts that come in based on it, someone normally texts me and says someone's poking, I just get rid of that person, do you know what I mean? But other than that, I don't know too much about how it works in the background on Facebook, but there seems to be quite a few people on there.
It did. I saw it when it first started. I joined straight away, and I put a couple of photographs of when I played back in the day. Not many things exist like that. Nowadays, we don't have photographs of ourselves so much. The boys who play football now have a lot more memories they can take away in a few years' time and show grandkids and whatever else in a few years. Than they've ever had, to be quite honest, because there's more facilities to go and do that. But one of the interesting things I found was that we found league tables which he printed out. And it's like looking at that and thinking, crikey, I used to play for them and we won that league that year, and it's almost there, it is a proof, which was great. And I love looking at that. So thank you for doing that, by the way. That's I appreciate that much so much.
My intention was to sort of add a little side thing onto the Chalvey website, just called Local Football Archive, and I never really got round to doing it, but I have got an awful lot of league tables. In fact, the Slough and District League table. So I played in the very last season of the Slough and District League, so that's when I first started playing men's football. And the Slough and District League finished, I think it was season 1990, 1991, and then it merged with the East Berkshire League. So there was years and years worth of tables that I was trying to find, and it was Robin Warman, rest in peace. I actually contacted Robin and said, "Have you got Slough and District League tables anywhere?" And he said, "I probably have." He said, "I've probably got the yearbooks, And he said, "I'll tell you what I'll do." He said, "I'll photocopy them, He said, I'll let you know when I've done it. He said, come round and pick them up. So I went round to Robbins and he had them all there from like the early 1960s. I sat and had a cup of coffee with him, and we had a chat about, football and stuff. And that's where I got that stuff from. And it just made me think about how I could get more information. But I got to a point where I couldn't find anything else.
Yeah.
But I've got loads more East Berkshire League tables dating right back, and my intention is to share them when I get the opportunity, maybe to stick them on a platform somewhere. So it's local football's been an interest to me for ages. So it is interesting looking at. Oh God, I remember that club. I remember I used to play for them.
Yes.
And they're not around anymore, but look, those clubs are still going over there. There are some well-established clubs in the area that have been playing since way back in the day.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that even through hard times, because you always go through hard times in football, one of the things that keeps you going, in my opinion, is not wanting the club that you're associated with just to disappear.
Yeah.
And there's been times like that with Chalvey over the years, and, but it has kept going, and I believe it will keep going, because there's some really great people still there at the club now, which we'll probably talk about that a bit later on. But yeah, 34 years with Chalvey. So joined as a player, played in the reserves.
So obviously a player, whereabouts do you play on the pitch, or do you start up front and work your way back?
Bang average player. I was a fullback, stupid brave, I think. I'd run through brick walls, make tackles, and generally, as when I was younger, I was a centre half. I used to like winning aerial battles and stuff. Wasn't very tall, but of course, when you go into men's football, you're up against much bigger centre forwards. So I played a little bit of centre half when I first started, and then moved to a full-back position, either left back or right back, even though I was right-footed. But yeah, I'd win the ball and give it to someone who can play football. Yeah, because you have to know I think you have to know your role within a team. What's the point in trying to do stuff that you can't do?
Absolutely.
If you ask me now to stand here and do 20 kick-ups, I probably couldn't do it. I'll probably after about 5, it'd be over the other side of the room. I'm not embarrassed to say that either.
Yeah, it'd be like you're hit 5.
but yeah, get the ball down, give it to someone that can play football and go from there. So I was very much always been a person that I'd hope would fulfil something, a function within a team, and let the talented players and the strikers and my favourite position, and I'd never ever be good enough to play there, centre midfield. I mean, people that can play in centre midfield and make time and space for themselves and create things is an art in its own right. And that's probably the reason why when I think about, people always talk about certain players being the best ever from the professional game. My favourite players always tend to be central midfield players.
Yeah.
I respect the other positions, of course, and you don't win games unless you score goals.
Yeah, no, that's very true. That's very true. I mean, I submit my heroes of centre midfielders generally. Actually, except for one who's Mike Duxbury.
Okay, yeah.
There's one for the teenagers. Obviously, so you play football for Chalvey, enjoying football on Saturdays and probably Sundays as well, and at some point in time, I imagine you become manager. How did that come around, or assistant manager? I
think it was just a natural progression for me, because I gave up playing when I was quite young. I had knee issues from a teenager, and in the job that I used to do, when my knees were getting really bad, I'd play football on a Saturday, and I could work on the Sunday, and I could guarantee my knees would be in pieces, and my first job of the day would be up 6 flights of stairs to a top floor flat, and the lift was broken, and then have to kneel down on the floor, looking at someone's central heating boiler. I gave up. I actually sort of stopped playing quite young, in my early 20s. So because a lot of my friends were still involved with Chalvey and still played, I technically just went along to watch them, to watch the first team mainly. Now and again I'd put a kit on and play for the reserves if they were short. But it's quite funny, because even though I'd stopped playing, I'd go and watch the first team. And they had a good side in the team at the time, and this would have been in the mid-90s, in the mid-90s. Chalvey were more of a cup side, really. Won the League Cup, and unfortunately, in my time with the club, we've never won a Slough Town Senior, which lost 3 finals. But that was something that always you know, when we went there thinking we had a real good chance, we unfortunately we never won. But yeah, so in the mid-90s, I generally, let's say we turn up at the Polish club to play Chalvey, and I'd probably go in the bar and have a couple of pints, and then when I come out, Youngie, you got your boots? And I went, what do I need my boots for? We've only got 10. And I go, okay, but I actually got to a point where I hope that happened every week because I loved it.
Yeah. I
played with some really good players, and I played where they wanted me to play. I played probably one of my first games over at Holland Park. Started as fullback. I hadn't played any football for about 5 years at that point, maybe even longer. I can't remember the exact time. But lined up at fullback, and I'd put on a lot of weight. I've tried to put my weight for years, and I could see sort of like people on the other team say, "Oh, we're gonna." And I just went back into mode of I'd do anything to stop that guy getting past me. And we won the game with a bare 11. And we used to do well. Another game I could turn up and go, Scott play up front, and someone like Andy Duran, who was a fantastic footballer, would take on 3 players and square it for me just to tap in to score. You know, that I used to love it. So I think at that time, Andy Duran and Andy Strachan, they both both played for Chalvey for many years. And Steve Quelch was the secretary at this time as well. And Steve Quelch had done so much for Chalvey, by the way.
Yeah.
I'd like to just actually make a point. I know Chalvey sort of left Chalvey a few years ago. There was never any falling out between me and Steve.
Yeah.
Because I meet people still even now and say, God, what happened with you and Steve? You know, you must have had a fallout for Steve to leave. We'd never had a fallout. You know, we're still good friends, and I actually caught up with him on Tuesday night at the Ascot and Flatwell Heath game I went to watch. So,
okay. Yeah.
You know, so, but anyway, so yeah, I think I just migrated into the position, and then Andy decided they didn't want to do it. So I think I took over as manager in the early 2000s.
Okay.
And Steve Quelch was like coach or assistant manager, whatever you want to call it. And then I managed the first team then in the East Berkshire League right up until season 2015-2016.
Right.
So I managed the team through some good times. We had some good teams, and we also had some really difficult years as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I gave it up when the club went into the Hellenic League.
Okay.
And someone else took over. Took pretty much the same group of players. Quelch stayed as coach, and then they went and they won 2 Hellenic Division 2 East titles on the trot, which was quite a feat for us. We hadn't won the league championship since the mid-90s, 1996, 97. Dean Bone would kill me if I can't remember the year, because he remembers every year and every day and always mentions it all the time. But yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much the journey. And then when I did step back from sort of managing the team, I got a bit tired of that, to be honest, because it is, as you know, it's quite a commitment. Yeah. It's quite funny because when I first started playing football, I'd go to the Garibaldi in Chalvey on a Saturday at 12 o'clock, and there'd be 30 geezers in the pub.
Yeah.
Already. No one's texted them, rung them, tweeted them, WhatsApped them, messaged them, emailed. No one had told these guys. There was just 30 guys in the pub, and the 2 managers would come in, first team and reserve manager, and go, that 15, you're with me today. This 15, you're with me today. You're at the rec. You lot are up at the Polish club or wherever they're playing, and off you go. And that was it.
Wow.
But I found towards the end that all these different platforms that you could contact, you'd still would not get responses from people. And that actually is, and I'm sure there are managers around now that can really sort of empathise with this, but it gets quite tiring chasing people, because I believe you should want to play football.
No, I totally agree. It's probably harder now to go and get a group of players together than it ever has been, and it seems to be becoming harder for whatever reasons. And 11-side football at this level is suffering massively.
It's dying. It's dying.
It's really dying at this moment in time, and I do think people like the Burks and Bucks and the FA especially need to look at this, because I can see 11-side football at its grassroots level probably be gone, in less than 10 years to some degree, and it's definitely a decaying rapidly.
Yeah, I mean, even if you look at the other leagues geographically close to the East Berkshire League at the same level, the Wycombe League. The Wycombe League, whenever we played a Wycombe League side in the county cups, they were always tough games. There was a good level of football, even though it's the same level, but good level of football. And the Wycombe League folded.
Yeah.
Probably about, I don't remember the exact, but a number of years ago it folded, right? And I remember back in the day, they probably had 5 or 6 local leagues. If you look at the Aylesbury District League, and I only look into this stuff, I probably need to get out a bit more, but the Aylesbury District League, and again, play teams in the County Cup against those sides. That's gone from 5-6 leagues down to 2 the last time I looked.
Yeah.
The last season of the Wycombe League, you had, I think you had 8 in the Prem and 8 in Division 1.
Yeah.
And it's a really sad sight to see. And of course you can see it with, those tables that I shared about the East Berkshire League. And even if you go back to the Slough District League days, you had a Premier or Division 1 side, best league in the area, and probably 5 or 6 leagues underneath that. Football is the biggest. Is the biggest men's 11-a-side football on a Saturday. The numbers are shrinking year on year, and it's and that gives headaches for leagues as well.
Oh, massive headaches. I mean, I know obviously the East Berkshire League gets spent the time this year, and even the last couple of years. There's no. I can only think of probably 2 new Slough teams that have come and joined the East Berkshire League.
Right.
The other new teams have generally come from Reading area. Now, whether that's because of Thames Valley League is full up and such like, so they're migrating over to us, but there's more Reading teams in the league now than there's ever been.
Yeah.
I can only think of 2 that have joined in the last couple of years, and one of those have folded.
Right.
So it kind of tells you where we're at, to be quite honest, and it's a bit disheartening.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you can see the Reading League is still got 6 leagues,
Yeah.
6 divisions, and there has been a big migration of some teams from Slough over there. But also, if you look at if you look at Reading itself, and if you look at the Thames Valley Prem at the moment, there's a big scattering of teams from this area.
Yeah.
In the Prem now. But there's a massive hole right in the middle of Reading where there are no teams. So they're either right over on the east, a little bit into Surrey,
Yeah.
in Middlesex, like Raisbury, and then they're over the other side. They're over the other side of Reading. So those central clubs for Reading, maybe they play in some of the lower league, maybe they're just not up to the level of the Prem. I've got an opinion here, and back in the day, East Berks Premier Division was a Step 7 league.
Yeah.
Right? And I remember going to AGMs at that point, and for the league to keep its Step 7 status, clubs in the Prem had to rope off the pitch.
I remember the meeting. We were talking about it last night, weirdly enough.
And there were teams that didn't want to do it, and I understand it, because it to a certain extent I understand it. Because if you ain't got anywhere to store anything, where do you keep poles and rope for a week? Yeah, it's got to live in someone's car. And we were quite lucky where we were, and there's other clubs like Old Windsor and Slough Heating and clubs like that who could store that stuff.
Yeah.
And there were also other established clubs, successful clubs in the East Berks Prem, who wouldn't have anywhere to store it.
Yeah.
But I'm led to believe that not roping off the pitch was it then sort of led to the East Berkshire League losing their Step 7 status. And then obviously what you've seen in the last few years is this big clambering of clubs wanting to get over to there to play in that league for the pathway to something higher potentially, which is what some clubs are geared up to doing and some clubs aren't. I'll come back to that in a bit actually. And I think it's a shame. And actually last year, I was on the Combined Counties, I was the Division 1 representative on the Combined Counties League. I was asked to do it. I ummed and ahed a little bit, but I thought, do you know what, they seem to be a well-run league. And I don't know what's happened since, but I did get the East Berkshire League, Gary and I think Robin was involved as well, to talk to the Combined Counties League in like a video conference call, to see if there could be some joining together of those 2 league systems, because the Combined Counties League is obviously up into step 6 and step 5.
Yeah.
And my thought process was, if we could get these clubs to talk, teams that have migrated into Division 2 East of the Hellenic League, and I know we did the same as a club, yeah, we did the same. There were various reasons for that, but I don't think that's any greater standard than there are teams that are of a greater standard in the Hellenic East divisions,
Yeah.
Hellenic 2 East, but there's also a lot of clubs in the EBFL Prem and in the Thames Valley Prem that are as good as or better than clubs in that division.
Okay.
Yeah. And I went to the combined counties because of the experiences that we were seeing with no referees in Hellenic 2, which led to us not having a development team this year because of the frustrations of that league and then not. So I went and just said, look, you've got some clubs in Division 2 East that might be open to playing in the EBFL Prem if it could get back to Step 7 status, be in with the combined counties potentially, and they would help support it and formulate committees and stuff. And I joined them together, and I was in that initial meeting, and then from that, I don't know what's happened, but I was led to believe they were going to have another conversation. So, I hope that something like that does happen, because I would love to see an explosion of teams in Slough again, and a really strong East Berkshire Premier Division. I was always proud to be, and still am. I know I've retired from my role within Chalvey Football Club, but they are still a big part of, how I feel about football. They're the club I support.
Yes.
Always will be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I support a certain Premier League team. I won't say it because I don't doubt people will boo, right? But I support a certain Premier League side, but my club is Chalvey Football Club, right? Chalvey Sports Football Club. And there's nothing that would make me feel great, and I'm sure lots of people within local football would feel the same, is if the numbers start to swell again. So it'd be interesting maybe to ask Gary and those. And look, they've got loads on their plate. I understand it. To see if that is something that's still being talked about or not. But I tried just to get people in a room together, which I did do, but don't know how it went from there.
I mean, the obvious thing is that unfortunately at this moment in time, if you look at our league, it is in a slight crisis at the Prem because they've gone down from. In fairness, this is not the committee's fault. I know it's not. They had in August 11 teams playing. They're now down to 8.
It's gone down. How many?
Yeah.
Who's dropped out there?
Well, we had Windlesham, Datship, a couple of others that have dropped out basically, and all of a sudden, you've got teams like Old Windsor and Britwell and such like. You can only sympathise with their plight because they'll probably get sick of the sight of each other. And plus now they've got all the other bits on top of that. They're paying X amount of much for a football pitch, which essentially may only use half as much as what they would due to use it for. The competition, they're playing the same teams over and over again. They're not being challenged enough as such to some degree. It is hard because Sing Saba, which is a well-established club, been in this league for 20, 30 years, probably longer.
I played against Sing Saba as a 17-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, this is an established team, and all of a sudden they're gone, and you kind of think, what's happened there? Now, obviously, there's certain things the committee could have done. I don't think they could have done anything in that capacity because it's literally they were told one day that's it. They're not coming into it all, and that's it. So it's really hard. But yeah, I think you're right. There needs to be some explosion, but it needs to be united first of all. And how we do that, I don't know. It's just this like that question.
I think there needs to be a change in the mindset of some clubs as well, though. I mean, this might be a bit controversial, but I see this on social media, and I sort of, maybe I shouldn't have done, but I sort of stuck my nose in and started replying to some tweets about Sunday football a couple of weeks ago on Twitter. This is the way. Right, the Premier Division is the best division, right? It's got the best teams in it, and you get teams that start, and they might start down the leagues, right? So back in the day, they might have started in Division 4. Yeah, and generally the committees on the league would say, what level do you think you should start at? And some clubs, I think we should start at the bottom. Some clubs would say, instead of Division 5, we're going to Division 3.
Yeah.
Because I think we've got some good players. And that's good, because there's some honesty involved in that. And generally they'll find the right level. But clubs, historically, in Saturday and Sunday football, will start at a lower league. Okay, let's pick Division 3. They'll absolutely walk Division 3. Maybe win some junior cups. Okay, get promoted. And you probably know by the results of the previous season that they're going to do well in Division 2. And a lot of the time they do. More junior cups, another league title. Get to, let's say now you're in Division 1. So, and this has happened far too many times for it to be a coincidence. You get to Division 1, and the team's good enough for Division 1, and it finishes in, let's say there aren't junior cups this year, because now you're probably playing in some senior cups, and you're not playing in the junior competitions anymore, because you're in Division 1. And let's say they finish in the promotion places. They don't win the league, finish second, finish third, and we all know in local football, clubs will pull out for whatever reasons and fold. So you can finish third and get promoted to the Prem. Yeah, it happened to our reserves this year. Right?
It
happened to Chalvey reserves. But let's say you finish third, and then the new constitution comes out, and that team's now in the Prem. For many years, there are clubs that have been in that situation or have won Division 1 and got promoted, and then at the AGMs or wherever say, well, I've lost this goalkeeper, I've lost 2 centre-halves, I've left 2 centre-forwards. And the league have listened to that, and this is part of, I suppose, Rob's plight, who was in the chat last week, right? And the leagues have listened to that and said, okay, do you know what, we won't put you in the Prem. And they've said, oh, do you know what, actually we need to be relegated into Division 2. Right? Because the league are in a difficult position, because it's like, well, if we say no to this, we're going to lose a club. And trust me, I don't know of any football league that want teams to fold. They don't want teams to fold, right? They don't. So they might let that team not get promoted, relegate them because they've lost a shed load of players, but then when the registration starts and the game starts, it's the same players, it's the same team. And they're winning and they're beating all those teams in the league again, because football, from the very top level down, for me, has always been about you finish where you finish, you get promoted or you get relegated. Yeah? Sometimes you'll win a cup, sometimes you don't. If you're an outstanding team at a lower level, you'll win lots of cups, you'll win lots of divisions, right? When it starts getting tougher, there's something in the mindset, it's either a player thing, and it's like, I don't want to go to the Prem, because actually we're not going to win 12 games this season, we're probably only going to win 5, and we're going to finish mid-table or in the bottom 4, and don't really want, and we're not going to challenge for the cups because we're playing against the better teams. And that's why there's a dearth of teams in Premier Divisions in local football. And in my opinion, that's the reason why you've got a load of slough teams now, those that have applied and been able to get in, that have moved to the Thames Valley League. Yeah? Because the teams that are in the Prem can see that there'll be competition day in, day out, right? So, Chalvey's first team got relegated from Step 6 last year, and the natural path for relegation is in the Thames Valley Prem. That's the only reason they're in there, right? So, I know clubs in the East Parks have applied, and for whatever reason, like High Train, been rejected for it, which, that's a different story, and I don't know anything about that. But clubs have gone over there because they want, especially the clubs that have been in the Prem, they want that more. I think they want to play harder games every week, not the 3 times a season against certain ones. And yes, nobody likes being a whipping boy, I completely understand that. That is a very difficult thing to be involved with. I think one of the last seasons, Chalvey's first team were in the East Box Prem. One of the club, I won't name the club, they put 11 players out every week. They did finish bottom. They never sort of whinged or moaned, what I saw, and they were still in the Prem the next year because again there was a shortage of teams to play in that top division. So it's a jigsaw puzzle that clubs have to think about, players have to think about. It puts massive pressure on league officials. Look, league officials aren't perfect. No. I've been on the end of frustrating decisions. Rob's plight last week. I said this to you before we started this. When I was the manager, we had one season where we thought we were going to fold. We only had one team at the time, and we went to the league and said, "Look, can you give us 1 week's grace? I want to get a few players signed on, just 1 week." They did give us the week's grace, but we lost. They put it down as a 0-0 loss, so we lost the game. They basically voided the fixture. Not voided the fixture. They gave the win to their 3 points to the other side, and that was not really disappointing. But I can see the predicament that they're in, because if they do it for every club every year, you end up starting seasons later and later and struggle to get games in, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
they have to sort of have a blanket overview of everything. But I believe that is the biggest problem that local football has. It's the biggest problem that leagues have. They don't want to lose clubs, but they also want competitive divisions. And do you know what? At the end of that season, if you've taken a step up and it hasn't worked out, and there's the reconstitution in the summer, and if you get relegated, you take the relegation.
Yeah.
You know, it's a difficult balance.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had it last year. We had the first and reserve team. Unfortunately, due to COVID and a few other issues, our first team just didn't get going. And we went to the league and said, look, can we leave our reserve team in the first division? In fairness, I didn't agree with the way they did it, because we kind of had to lay our soul down and beg.
Yeah.
Had I known certain things, I would have said, look, we're just going Prem. But, that's bygones be bygones. I must say, I'm proud of the boys that what we've done was literally step up with all the reserve team players. They stepped up, played in Prem. We come bottom, but we played every single game. And in fact beaten the eventual winners once as well, which is fantastic. And I think actually in the end, the fear that they had of going into that division was, I don't know what we were worried about, was one big thing. And two, I think they took a lot from it. They realised that if they wanted to do anything as a footballer or a football journey, they needed to do certain things. They stepped up. I mean, they really did step up. They played as hard as they could do. They looked like they were going to avoid relegation at one point in time, and then in the end got relegated. But we're in Division 1 now, and we'll see how that goes. In fairness, it's a lot stronger league than it was last year. But personally, I don't think. I mean, if we got second and third this year, I'll probably get killed for saying this, but I think rightly we should be promoted, and we should go up.
But you don't see
what you want to do.
Yeah, you don't. Even at certain levels, you'll turn up to AGMs. So Hellenic AGMs and combined counties AGMs, and there's the constitution, and the conversation doesn't. Who's proposing this? And someone stick their hand up. Who's seconding it? And it's done. Yeah. I appreciate it can't be like that at every level, but they will be based. They'll do that based on the principle of you get this before the season starts. This many teams get promoted. This many teams get relegated.
Yeah.
And it is harsh if you've had a bad season. Trust me, I managed some Chalvey teams that really struggled. But actually, in the seasons where we did struggle and where we did avoid relegation, last game of the season, we had to beat the team that would win the league to stay up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we won 3-2.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I stressed it for 2 weeks over that game, thinking I don't want to be the Chalvey manager that sees Chalvey scores go down. But had we finished bottom and we did get relegated, if we had got relegated, then we would have just taken it on the chin. Go from there. Let's start again.
Yeah.
Give me one senior trophy over 10 junior ones. If you can play at a level of football wherever you are, you'll get to a level of where you can play at, right?
Yeah.
As a club and as an individual. But I'm a big believer in always trying to get to the best level that your ability can let you play at. Yeah, and that level doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about that individual's ability or the team's ability, as long as they get a squad of 15 players out every week. Yeah, that fulfil all the fixtures, that don't then put pressure on the guys behind the scenes about with fines and this, that, and the other about not fulfilling fixtures. That makes it easier for everyone, and of course it makes it easier for the leagues as well.
Yeah.
And look, I'm painting a very sort of perfect picture here, and that doesn't always happen, and a lot of the time it doesn't, and it's difficult. In my opinion, it could be one of the contributing factors as to why numbers are dropping at certain levels of football. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
I want to go back to obviously Chalvey now again. Probably, I'm not sure what year it was, 2016, was it? You went up to the Hellenic?
Yeah, we went to Hellenic Division 2 East for the 2016-2017 season, yeah.
So, talk me through the process of that, because obviously that don't just happen. You don't just think, oh no, we're going to Hellenic. That's a great idea. There must have been a process building up to that. You would have probably had to get a few things in shape. What did you do? What did you need to do? And did you, obviously you did it, well, you must have done it right, so you won the league first year you were in there, but if you were giving advice to anyone who were looking to that as a club,
yeah,
what would your advice be, and how would you approach it yourselves?
So I think the initial approach. So we thought about it before that the Linchpin and ourselves they'd won the league. Great team, the Linchpin,
yeah.
Fantastic team.
Absolutely.
And they won the Prem 3 years on the trot, and we were runners up 3 years on the trot. And what we'd seen, and I know the Linchpin, not speaking for them, but I've had conversations with guys there.
Yeah.
They just saw probably the start of teams not wanting to come up to the Prem.
Yeah.
So there was a smaller number of games. And it's probably in similar situations that clubs might find themselves in, maybe this season, now down to 8 teams, right? So we talked about it, and we literally reached out to the Hellenic League, spoke to a fella there called Brian King. Does a lot for local football, Marmite of a guy though.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he does a lot for local football, so you always have my respect from that point of view. So we applied. At the time, we'd gone back to Chalvey Rec, and we had the new changing rooms over the back, which used to be, fun enough, the nursery school I used to go to. They converted to change rooms. So we had a T-bar, and we had a much smaller setup than what you've got here.
Yeah.
Straight up onto the pitch. So we had to have a ground inspection. So first thing we had to do was the pitch needed to be bigger. It needed to be a certain minimum size. And of course we had to work with the council to get that minimum size. And we had to ask the council for round goalposts and not square ones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so fair play to the council. They made the pitch bigger. It really stretched it out at Chalvey Rec. We got the posts that we needed. And of course the changing rooms need to be a certain size. There's a document, even if you wanted to go in the Thames Valley Prem, there's a document they send clubs, and the change rooms have to tick certain boxes. So for the Hellenic League and the Thames Valley Prem, it's pretty much the same. So you need a certain square footage, and you need a certain number of shower heads.
Yeah.
So I think you needed a minimum of 4 shower heads. We only had 3, but they didn't mind that so much. And we had to take some lockers out to increase the square footage.
Okay.
So we had some lockers in each change room. We had to take them out to prove that we had enough square footage. And then, they granted us into the league. And actually, we had done that, and the Linchpin moved as well the same year. So us and the Linchpin both went to Hellenic Division 1 East. And the Hellenic League's a very well organised league, but there's a process you have to go through. And at that time, we never thought that we'd get to step 6. So we didn't go, we want to get to step 6, we want to get to step 5, where Ascot and Windsor and Hollyport play.
Yeah.
We just wanted, maybe to play some different teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was 13 or 14 teams in that league that season.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was a full season, and we could enter one external cup competition as well.
Oh, okay.
I think, Langley beat us in the Slough Senior Cup final that year. Beat us 3-1 in the final, yeah. That was the process, but that's what we had to do to get into the Hellenic.
Yeah.
So
at some point in time, obviously you've done that. You then went to Slough Town, Arbor Park, or was there a thoughts behind that?
So of course, because we won the Division 2 East, which I must admit, when we went up, me and Steve didn't think we'd win anything. We didn't think we'd win the league. But we only lost 1 league game that season. So yes, we won the league. But the players were like, are we getting promoted? Are we getting promoted? And we didn't really find out until after the date that we actually had to apply to go to step 6.
Oh wow.
And we missed the application date. Because technically speaking, the only clubs that should get to step 6 are those clubs that are at step 7. That's the natural pathway up.
Yeah.
So, if you look at non-league sort of football forums, you could say the likes of us, we did it first, the likes of Langley, another local club obviously, they're doing fantastically. And another club that were in the leagues the same time as us and Langley, a side called Long Crendon. We all got up to step 6 through the back door.
Right.
So at the time, the Hellenic League they had 2 divisions, Division 1 East and Division 1 West, and they only had sort of like 14 teams in each league, and the FA directive was that clubs at Step 6 needed 16 to 18 teams. And because there was a shortage of clubs across that region, it's probably the reason why we ended up getting in through the back door. But after winning the league the first season, we weren't ready to, we hadn't applied.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we ended up winning the league the second season. It was a much closer season. Aberdeen United pushed us all the way. But to be able to go up, we had to prove that we had facilities that had the facilities needed for Step 6, which was floodlights. And we were really fortunate that we were able to get in at Arbour Park. So we started playing there in the October of the second Hellenic Division 2 East season. And then, of course, we won the league, and we took that step up to Step 6. And and that was the natural path of promotion. If we were still at Chalvey Rec like the season before, then we still wouldn't have been able to go up.
Yeah.
So, and of course, Langley have done the same since, and doing really well now as well. So,
Peter and such like
Peter and
new owners and such like have done really well with it.
Yeah, they are.
So you go strength to strength, basically, with all. So you're there in Hellenic. It seems to be all going really well.
Yeah.
Then obviously Steve decides to move on at some point in time.
Yeah.
During that reign, but he still seemed to go from strength to strength. As such, or was that part of the downfall?
I don't know really. I think there's a lesson to be learned from Chalvey's journey to Step 6 football. The bottom. What people say is the bottom league of the non-league football map, right? And that lesson is sustainability. Yeah. Yeah. So first of all, it's great playing at Step 6. We had 4 seasons there. We played in the FA Vars 3 times. We never won a game in the FA Vars. We got beat by. I think we got beat by Wembley the first year at Arbour Park 1-0 in the first qualifying round. The second year we took a hammering over at North Greenford United. I think we got beat 5-1. And then last year we got beat 2-0 against Rothwell Corinthians from the United Counties Premier League or something. Step 5 team again. But the lessons I spoke about, the sustainability part is one financial. Because when you move up, even into Division 2 East, the fees are higher. Yeah, the fees are higher. But then when you go to Step 6, the fees are even higher. So I can't remember 100%. Steve used to deal with this stuff back in the day. But 400 or 500 quid potentially as a league fee for the season. Yeah. And then you have the sponsors package, which is very handy because you have to play with the league sponsored balls, and you get half of it for free, but you've got to fork out 500 quid for the other half. You've then got to pay for a stadium that costs, I'm not going to tell you specifics, but thousands of pounds to play at. Yeah. Then you've got 3 matchday officials. So look, I'd have 3 matchday officials and pay for them every day of the week compared to having club linesmen, right? Look, we've all been on the wrong end of club linesman positions, but it comes at the cost of about 150 quid a game. You've got to do programmes. So those programmes will cost a certain amount, and we used to get printed copied programmes, and we used to lose money on them every week because there were some people that would come to your games specifically, groundhoppers, to get programmes, right? Absolutely, yeah. And they collect it, and that's great. So you give 6 away out of the 25, say, that we used to get printed, and then most of them. So my shed was full of Chalvey programmes up until last year. I kept a copy of each one, and then I binned the rest of them. I didn't want to chuck them away. I'm not order or nothing, trust me, but so there's programmes. But then on a match day, you've got to provide hospitality as well. So you've got to be, say, at Arbour Park or at Burnham's Ground, an hour and a half before the game. You've got to lay on tea and coffee for the players. You've got to lay on tea and coffee for the officials. You've got to lay on tea and coffee at half time. And then after the game, you've got to provide food. Yeah? So if you add up the cost if you put it all down to a match day cost, you've got to think about the cost of the pitch, the match day officials, the kit wash, the programmes, the food, and anything else that you might need to do. And if you average that out, you wouldn't be shy of about 500 quid a game.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Right? So for a club that doesn't have an income, which, let's be fair, most clubs in local football don't have an income.
Yeah.
and we certainly didn't have an income. You're then at the, you're then sort of, it's about sponsorship. And finding sponsorship in the last few years has been really difficult. So, as you know.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And the pandemic put a stop to most of that.
Absolutely, yeah. It's very hard for sponsors at the moment. It's very hard for anyone to get money out of a company as such. But yeah, we're lucky enough to have some very good sponsors now. But yeah, you can do some more, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, at Chalvey, we've always been lucky. We've always got sponsors, and this year, so all right. We had a hard season last year. We finished bottom of the combined counties Division 1. And by the way, that's the other commitment. The other sustainability part is 40 league games.
Yeah, massive.
Yeah. So think about some clubs that struggle for that commitment level, and you're playing 20 league games. You've got to have that's 40 league games plus. If you get through a few cups, you could have 50 or 60 games. The London Lions, who won the league last year, they probably played nearly 70 games last year. Yeah. We probably played about 50 games. Yeah. And the sustainability of your volunteers then comes into question too.
So, I mean, that's obviously brings into question all the bits and pieces that we're talking about is, obviously you had sponsors which will probably put a large amount of money up, or if not all. You had volunteers. I mean, I know Chalvey from 2016, and you didn't really have volunteers there, I don't think, and
no.
You didn't have sponsors, as far as I'm aware. And you might well have done nothing major, and you suddenly, it always seemed like you stepped into it, it was all there. I know it wasn't like that, but there must have been another year, 2 years planning towards that.
There was and there wasn't. Look, we've always been really lucky. We've always been supported by Chalvey Workingmen's Club.
Yeah.
And we were massively sort of promoted within the committee by someone else that sadly passed in recent times. And Keith Mash, who's Chalvey Workingmen's Club secretary. Rest in peace, Keith. You've done so much for us as a football team over the years, and it'd be a sorely missed guy for a number of different reasons. But Chalvey Sports were always supported by Chalvey Workingmen's Club. But because then you go away from your roots a little bit and you're not playing at Chalvey Rec, people then stop going.
Yeah.
Because you're playing at Arbour Park or at Birmingham, or you're playing away in Oxford or in London, wherever. People are not going to go back to the club. And that came to the fore over that period of time. But some of the other sponsors, we were just lucky. We were sponsored by Savills Estate Agents for a few years, and I made a contact with someone that put me in contact with someone quite high up within Savills' organisation. And he said, "Can you meet me at Paddington Station on such a date?" And so I took a day off work, went up and met him, and we had a chat about football. We said, "Well, this isn't normally things that we do. We don't really do football, but we do a lot with Slough Borough Council. We know you play at this stadium." And we walked away with sponsorship, which was quite nice.
Wow, okay.
But then that came to an end when COVID hit. So that COVID interrupted season after it. They said, "Look, we got 2,000 people furloughed.
Yeah.
Now can we be giving you X amount of money when we've got people sitting at home? Some of them not on pay, some of them are on pay, but we can't be seen to be giving that money away." So I think we were just really lucky for a few years that when Savills decided they couldn't do it, there was someone else that stepped in. My brother, he sponsored the club. His new business sponsored the club for 2 seasons.
Oh, right, okay.
If there's not, sometimes it's about the connections of people that that know the club that help you out from that. There's another guy I've known for donkey's years that put some money in our pocket. I ain't going to tell you who he is because that's But he supported us for a couple of seasons with a couple of generous donations as well. So sometimes it's about. We didn't fly by the seat of our pants, as it were. There was some organisation to it, but the work for people like Quilchi and myself, and then latterly, and obviously because you've got two other teams. You've got Carl Feasy, who run a very successful reserve and development side, and Carl is still at the club now and does so much for the football club, and I've got big respect for Carl and Bradley O'Brien, and Craig Howard, who's running the A side, that A side is now reserves in the East Parks Prem, and Alex Smith, and my dad being the president, and other people along the way. I apologise if I've missed anybody out, but it sort of all falls within most of those people to do those things.
Yeah.
But it never stopped all the way through every summer for about 4 years. This year, because we didn't need as much money, because we got relegated and you don't need lights, so why would you pay to play at a lovely place like Burnham Football Club when you don't need the lights?
Yeah.
So by the end of May this year, we already had enough money for 3 teams to function this year. So actually this summer was actually quite a relaxed one, instead of worrying at the end of July to hear back to see if we've got sponsorship or not. And that is quite a stressful situation to be in as well.
Yeah, we've all been there basically.
Yeah.
You can see how you're actually going to, as you say, sustainability and keep going forward and such like. I know COVID's hit our bank account hard.
Yeah. And now you've got the energy crisis and the banking crisis, and small businesses closing because of
Exactly.
Not just that, also mortgage rates. You've got all that stuff to think, and that's the hidden effect of things.
Oh, yeah.
That reaches down into every sport, I suppose.
I mean, COVID has obviously taken a massive hit to football, full stop. Not only in terms of playing, there's for players because of COVID, because they want to spend more time with their family.
Yeah.
We've just gone through pretty much 2 seasons where 2 seasons felt like it was 1 season all joined up, because we had so little time between them. I don't think there's more than 4 or 5 weeks between 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So we're finishing and starting again, and it almost felt the same this year again. And that's had an effect, because players are just worn out. And lots of players that probably would have carried on a couple more years just stepped away from it, because I'm done. I've played football constantly for 2 years now. I need to get away from it a little while. And I totally get it. And it's hard then to go and bring footballers in, because I know certainly this year we didn't have as many inquiries for players who want to come down. So that's obviously a fact, and I know that's going to knock on probably next year and such like. And so yeah, it has been difficult in terms of all that, but sustainability of the club is just massive, to be quite honest.
Yeah. Even if you think about it, I can't remember how many times I had to redo risk assessments, COVID risk assessments. It's like it's just give me a break. I'm not a health and safety expert or anything like that, but all of a sudden I'm having to renew the risk assessments based on the FA just randomly bringing one out every couple of weeks, and then you've got an email saying, can you sort this risk? And I'm trying to work full time here at home. I'm trying to keep my job.
That's the thing. I mean, it's the amount of time which does take you away from family affairs. You're giving up your Saturday, essentially, as running the football team.
Yeah.
So that's gone straight away. But I don't think people see the hours during the week and Sundays and such. Like, you try and give yourself 1 day a week to not have any involvement with football. What's not always done, and it's not easy, because there's always someone ringing you and doing what you want. Yeah. You are where you are, basically.
And if I think about last season, there were 2 of us, me, not just 2 of us, so me, Cole Feasy and Bradley O'Brien and some other club officials, but for the first team home matches, my Saturday started with going to Booker again, getting shopping at 10:30 in the morning, and then I'd be out. If it was a home game, I'd have to do all the hospitality stuff and clean the stadium, organise someone to do the gate, because you want to be able to try and get some money back, organise to do the gate, get the kit washed during the week, sort the programme out, make sure that the financial stuff is okay, and there was a very small number of people wearing too many hats. So the sustainability needs to be A, financial, B, the volunteers. We've lost some really important people to the football club in recent years. Mickey Stoddart, who is the best Chalvey sports supporter ever. He followed us all the way along a certain journey and done the gate for us at Harbour Park. And then Mick's had some health issues for the last 2 years. And then we never took anyone for granted. But when you all of a sudden lose just one person, it just shows. Well, we always knew the value, but there are other people that would never understand that value that
No.
one person helping you every week can actually give to a club.
Yeah.
You know, and part of me does feel a little bit bad about stepping down in the last couple of weeks, but I need to do it for me.
Yeah.
And we're lucky that, you know, those people that I mentioned before, they're picking up the mantle. And I've said to the guys, you know, you can still ring me. You know, if you need advice, I'll give you advice all day long, because I still look at Chalvey as my club. The club, not my club. That sounds really arrogant.
I know what you mean.
The club is the club that I love. It's the club that I support. It's the club that I spend a lot of time at. So I have feeling for the club. So, you know, and it's in excellent hands with the people that are there.
Yeah.
And that's really important as well.
Yeah. So obviously you mentioned just now you've stepped away from Chalvey.
Yeah.
And tell me about the process now, because obviously it came a little bit of a shock to people that don't know. I was shocked when I first saw the tweets and Facebook announcement. But also, why then? I mean, you had the whole pre-season, you started the season, and all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, the logical way of doing it
would have been in the closed season.
Yeah, or even wait to the end of this.
So, look, I think part of the reason why I made the decision at the time I did is purely based on the way I felt personally. So, look, I've been a really committed person for Chalvey Football Club for a long, long time as a player, manager, chairman, whatever, general dog's body, whatever. And I would always go into everything 100%. In fact, you know, sometimes I invest too much time in things. You know, my wife would say to me, well, can't someone else do that? Surely you don't have to do that. So at home, a few times when I've been struggling, I've been like, I need to quit. And they've said, yeah, look, you need to take some time back for yourself. The reason why I've done it, I did it at this point, I think mainly is because I think I'd turned into someone that wasn't enjoying it. I was turning into, I was watching games and not enjoying football. Last year was hard to watch, right?
Yeah.
This sort of goes into the whole thing. When you get to step 6, you have a core of players. We had a core of local players that got us to that level, right? And then over time, because of the commitment it takes, 40 games, training once, maybe twice a week as well, right? People drop off. So we lost a lot of local players, right? And they've gravitated back in, you know, into the East Parks Prem, and you know, they're enjoying their football, and they're playing well, and they're winning trophies for the clubs they're playing. That's brilliant. I love that. But what happens at step 6 is when you get new players in, they're probably not local lads. They're people that don't have any affinity with the club. They don't see how the club got to where it was, you know. And I know that some players stepped away from Chalvey because players that were coming in I was going to swear then.
Yeah.
They didn't care, right? They didn't care. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And then this sort of manifested itself last year. So we started the season quite well. We then lost. We got to about 4 or 5 games on the trot where we lost. And the managers we had in at the time, Darren and Adam, they were both really committed guys.
Yeah.
And they put a lot in, and I got a lot of respect for both of them. And I don't blame them that they got to a point where they said, can't get anything out of these players. Because the players, you could see, they didn't really care.
Wow.
Laughing and joking after getting beat 4-0. Or being petulant on the pitch, saying, you lot are crap, you're getting beaten 5-0. So I'm watching that, literally then, some players, not all players, right?
Yeah.
Some players just take everything that they've got for granted. They got a nice kit, play at a nice pitch, they get fed, they get watered, they get, you know, and yet they don't give 2 craps when they get beaten. So the managers left, Cole came in, Cole Feasy, I don't know what we would have done without Cole last year. Cole took over, he brought a load of lads in from the development side, young lads, and then, you know, they weren't ready for the level.
No.
Right, but they put their heart and soul to it. I actually enjoyed the 24 out of 25 defeats that finished last season more than I'd enjoyed watching a group of people that I didn't know play football.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah.
I get that.
So anyway, I was thinking, I can't commit to this next year. I can't commit. But then I thought, do you know what, we've been relegated, let's see if we can do it. Anyway, it got nothing to do with the start of the season. The first team haven't had a great start of the season. And I started thinking about it again, because I'm now thinking, well, I've started a new job as well, I've got a lot more responsibility at work. Didn't have the time to do some of the things that I was doing before. And this is the part, this is probably just me. When I worry about things, I don't sleep very well. I'll get off to sleep and I'll wake up at 3 in the morning and I'll be awake till 6.
Yeah.
And I was like that last season, and I started to get like that again. And I thought about it while I was awake for this 3 hours 2 weeks ago. I went to work, didn't think about it all day, and then I got in and I wrote my resignation message to the guys in the chat. And I didn't even speak about it with my wife, because it would have been, you talk about this every year. My wife started saying, my Mrs. And she's not. But my girls as well, they would have been, God, you talk about this every year, but you don't do anything about it. So this time I literally just did it. Yeah, people were shocked. The guys in the WhatsApp group that we have, that I'm still in, they were shocked. But it's the right decision for me. When this is finished, I'm going to go and watch North London Derby, 12:30 kickoff that I haven't watched for 20 years, and that's a popular time for that game to be on. So, I can now either go and watch Chalvey or not. I could get a season ticket at Spurs if I wanted to. Yeah, I've just let I could get my season ticket at Spurs if I wanted to. I don't even have to. I can go and watch any local football match I want now. Yeah. I can go and watch the reserves more, because I haven't watched the reserves or the A side or the development team that much for about 5 years, because I've been needing to be doing stuff with the first team to support the level of which they were at. And I also felt it was the right time, because the officials that are still there, I can't heap enough praise. Brad, Chalvey, Craig Howard, Alex Smith, Tony Gallia, I can't praise those guys enough, because they do loads for the club, and they're now working hard to do what they need to do to see if there's any, and of course it gives the club a fresh outlook as well. Because potentially, I think I might have got stuck in my ways a little bit of an old dinosaur, and I would be the person that would go and watch a game. And if something wasn't done the way I like it to be done, I have to get involved. And I don't really want to have that pressure anymore.
Yeah.
But I am looking forward to watching, more games of local football. I'll still go and watch Step 6 and Step 5 football. I can go and watch any football I want now if I want to. But on the flip side, if I don't want to watch football and I want to go into London with my wife, or we want to... because my commitment would be so much that I would not do things like that with my family, because football was important to me, and they always knew that.
Yeah.
So we tended to do things on a Sunday or on a Friday night. Now I can do things on a Saturday, and I don't even have to think about it, and that actually takes a lot of pressure off. So that's the reason why I thought I talked about it enough at home, and Cole knew that I've been thinking about it for a while as well, Cole Feasy. The support and the nice messages I got from the guys, and of course from the football community in general has been, I'm really sort of overwhelmed by it, and I've always tried to do things in the right way as a manager, win or lose. I'd always be humble. I'd never sort of brag about winning a game or bitch and moan about a referee's decision cost us the game. I wasn't a guy that liked to do that, because I always wanted to be treated the way that I would try to treat other teams and other clubs and other players. Shake every other player's hand. Go out and shake the manager's hand, the officials, even if you've had a bit of something on the line, because when the whistle goes at the beginning and when it stops at the end, the before and after should always be hopefully a pleasant experience for everyone, and something that you don't mind bumping into these people again to in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thank you for that insight, Sarah. I know that's probably something that a lot of people want to know as such. It's kind of cleared all that up for me, it has, and I'm sure everyone else it will do. But what I want to do is, once again, thank you for your time.
No worries.
Much appreciate it, mate. I also want to say good luck in your future endeavours and whatever you're doing, watching football or being with the wife.
I'm getting a cup of tea here now and watch you guys play.
Well, yes, you're always welcome here. Don't you know that? With Chalvey or not, to be quite honest with you, you're always welcome here. The invitation is always open to you, and I know that every other football club will welcome you with open arms to see you as well. But listen, thank you for today. Thank you for your time. I know it's precious time, but I really appreciate it. And I look forward to just going out now and looking back on it and seeing what's been said. I'm sure everyone else will do as well. So,
I'm sorry if I've waffled a bit as well. I do tend to waffle,
don't worry about that, mate. I'm also conscious of time, so I want you to get you to that football match that you were talking about.
Yeah, no, look, as far as I'm concerned, anything that anybody can do involved with any grassroots football club or league to keep it sustainable and to keep it going and to keep the leagues filled with teams and young people wanting to play football, that's the most important thing, is the game. And if we all look after it together and help club officials run teams, because it can make people tired, and I think I'm tired. And so look, I appreciate you inviting me along for this today. I could waffle again, but I appreciate your time, and I'll see you around a local football pitch in the near future, no doubt.
Scott, thank you very much, mate.
Cheers, mate.
Good to see you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Once again, thank you for everyone for that, and if you like this podcast, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.
Ice in my veins, I've been driving this train. Years in this lane, there's no stopping this flame. Cause I came to the game and I changed it to play how I like, rearranged it to my own domain. Yeah, I got what it takes, made lots of mistakes, taking shots, skipping breaks.